complete antithesis of the outro last week. That slop fest. I just feel like that at the end last week, I was like, oh, I haven't listened back to it yet, but I just remember us all at the end being like, we're keeping it. And it was just like us being totally idiots. But good fun one there.
Yeah,
that was good.
It was good.
I am also very happy that I was wrong about what the adapters was going to be, because like honestly,
just
I was
Randall
thinking
untangling them like Clark Griswold style.
Yeah, just like 3 of them connected into them, and they're like,
I'm willing to go down that rabbit hole, but
like a shoulder button doesn't get like
no.
Everybody, welcome to Pursuing Pixels. My name's Kevin Portelli, and I'm here tonight with John Hines.
Hey there.
And Randall Nolery.
Hey, folks.
And we are back, as always, to talk about some video games. And
as always.
I don't know about, I was going to say we're feeling pretty loose tonight. I don't know about, I don't want to speak for you guys, but I'm feeling pretty loose tonight.
We had so many opportunities of a false start, and we just kept talking, so...
Yeah, I think we almost started recording this episode maybe 20 minutes ago or so.
Yeah, but 2 or 3 times, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sipping on some gin and chocolate milk over
Hell
here,
yes.
so we're going strong. And I guess, I'm just going to roll right into the first game that I wanted to talk about here. And I'm going to have a hard time describing why I love this game, because it's definitely not a Kevin game. This is the newest game from PUNKCAKE, so I guess that's probably the main reason that I love this game is that it's from PUNKCAKE, but it's called Shroomchitect.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to try to spell that, but it's spelt how you think it would be spelt. And it's basically Minecraft meets The Sims meets a Tamagotchi. So if that makes sense, you basically, when you start the game, there's just one little mushroom that you can pick from, and it's like this little you get 3 little shroomy characters that you control, and you don't control, they're more like little Tamagotchi virtual pets almost, and they each have like a meter for their hunger, their social, their energy, and their I think it's just like determination or purpose or something like that. And I actually don't know how that meter just, I don't know what gauges that meter, because like, for energy, you need to rest. For hunger, you need to eat. For social, you can go like chat with people, and then once with the other shroomies, and then once you've chatted enough with the shroomies, then they can high five each other, or they can like flirt with each other. It's so cute. It doesn't go beyond that. Like Remy was teasing, like, oh, there's a new feature, and apparently they're going to add in the ability to pet the shroomies,
of course,
and just like. This game, the UI is just incredible. It's pretty much played entirely with the mouse. So we're back to like my like game of the year discussion stuff, or like when I was talking about some of my favorite games where I'm just like sitting on the couch playing with my cursor. The only thing you use the keyboard for is you can rename the shroomies if you want.
Sure.
And it's like this really like handcrafted like homebrew I say Minecraft because it's almost like these little miniature like voxels.
Yeah, and the visual style is awesome.
It's awesome. And on top of the visual style being awesome, there's like a built-in like photo mode and a built-in like GIF generator. So like once you've crafted your shroomie, there's basically just like a little, like it's like this little carved out area in the woods that, you got like, you can basically just 360 degrees like pan the camera around, and you can see like trees in the background, and like every once in a while, even like on certain nights, they'll be like these like flashing lights, and like the song's like a little extra special on that particular evening, and there's like these glowing lights in the background. It's got very like Pico 8 vibes on those occasions, which again, PUNKCAKE uses Pico 8 to do the majority of their sound effects and stuff, which is so cool.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
But this is probably the best soundtrack, and I mean, that's saying a lot, because again, we got Pentadrangle on the soundtracks here for PUNKCAKE, and this is this is my favorite soundtrack by far, and that's probably what keeps me coming back to this game. Like, again, this is a game that's very much not a me game, and I've dumped like at least 6 or 7 hours into this game now. I've made like 5 or 6 different shroom little huts, and there's no purpose really to it other than like the like managing of like the virtual pet side of things, like making sure that they're like your shroomies are are happy basically. But like, you can customize to some small degree. Like, you can't do anything crazy, but you can build beds, you can build campfires, you can build like platforms and bridges and stuff. And it's just got such a unique, again, it's just something about PUNKCAKE just has that magic. I don't know what it is, but their games just pull me in. Again, I probably wouldn't be, I guess the visual style and everything like probably would have compelled me to some degree. Because the game is just so charming looking.
Yes,
but
it just exudes personality just from like the GIFs I've seen on Twitter.
Yeah, it's just pure joy to play this game, and like 2 hours will just fly by. Yeah, like it's nothing. Like I'm just sitting there. It was a really fun. I did like a first look. They changed up their Patreon tiers a little bit, like they used to do, where the higher tiers would get to like vote on what their next game might be, and they're like, hey, this is like getting way too stressful. Like this game, we're recording this at the end of February here. This is technically January's game for their Patreon. Remy just kept saying like, I need a little more time in the oven. We're like, take your time, Remy. This game looks amazing. Like take your time. Like if you need to, push a month for the Patreon, like whatever you all need to do to make it work. Like we're here to support you. We're like these, I'm on the lowest tier of their Patreon, but it's $4 a month, but they changed some things up. So like instead of voting, like their middle tier now is you get the soundtracks with the game. So I'm like, oh man, I might need to upgrade from that bottom tier. Like I'm just getting the games over here now that I got that like this new soundtrack's like just got these like chill, like tinkly pianos, and it's just got the perfect, like between the day night cycle. Like there's not that much different musically going on, but it's just like there's enough variety that you just get sucked into this like world. And especially again when I've done it like for streaming or whatever, I'm putting the headphones on and just really getting lost in the experience. Like, oh man, just really loving my time with this game, and really having a lot of fun. Like Dylan, our buddy in the Discord's been like sharing his little shroom villages, and everyone in the PUNKCAKE Discord's been sharing theirs as well. It's been a ton of fun. So
that's cool.
And it was also a ton of fun. They did like, this is the first game that they released a few days early for the Patreon subscribers to kind of like do a little bit of like a bug check, if you will. So they actually did do like a big patch before like the day one launch, and like took a bunch of the feedback from everybody and made some pretty big tweaks and fixed a lot of stuff that was just like, oh wait, the pathfinding was messed up here and there, but they like made the camera work a little smoother and like a little less, or a little snappier, I should say, not necessarily smoother, but just like a little less floaty. I don't know. It's just, I'm really looking forward to like getting that little like first few days early look on their future games. But that is cool. I guess while I'm talking about this game here, Shroomchitect being kind of a bit of just like an experience that sucks you in. I know Randall and I were going to talk about another game here that was a bit of a total experience, a game called Exo One, and that's just EXO one. The word one, I guess, not the number one, right. But this is a game that I've seen a few times. I will say, like, it's on Xbox Game Pass, which is where I think how both of us played it here. Yep. And it's caught my eye kind of, but like the little thumbnail looks like so cheesy. It definitely doesn't grab your eye as like, ooh, I need to check that. What's this game? I got to check this out.
I don't know that I would have booted it if you hadn't prompted me to do so.
And I don't know that I would have booted it if there wasn't, I think it was Shynif and Quasi-Otter. And again, just to shout out our Discord, I know we mention it all the time, but like there's always new people jumping in. There's always like cool games we're chatting about and whatnot. And yeah, this was one of them. And both of them, and granted, I guess Quasi-Otter and I tend to agree a lot on games, but like Shynif definitely tends to, whenever they recommend games, it's always like a really kind of like, this is just like an experience. Like sometimes I'm into it, sometimes I'm not. I'm just like, oh, that's not really my thing. Like I kind of like more mechanically driven experiences, but this game did, when I saw it in action, I was like, it does look pretty compelling. I don't know, it just looks pretty unique. And I took the whole first bit of the conversation on Shroomchitect here, so why don't you take it away on Exo One? I don't know how much of this game you played here. I did play through it all in one sitting, which was about 2 hours, but
I didn't get a chance. I thought I was going to be able to do the same, and I made it like 5, I guess I wouldn't say levels, environments.
They're kind of levels.
Yeah, I guess so. 5 or 6 of
but
those.
Environments is a better word. Yeah.
And like, what besides you saying like, oh, Randall, you need to check this out, it's on Game Pass. Besides that, like I noticed, it's like you're rolling around this marble. Of course, I didn't even think of that. Like that has appeal to me, obviously. From past experience with Marble It Up and Marble Madness and Monkey Ball and all those sorts of experiences. But it's interesting. The gameplay is like you start off in that kind of rolly marble shape, and you're kind of going over the this kind of like alien terrain or like different planets is kind of the setup that way.
Yeah, and the first level is almost like I'd almost say it's like slaloms, almost like the way you're like kind of going over these like humps.
Yeah,
if you will,
or like dunes or something. Like yeah. But you kind of start off in that marble form, but as you like hold and pull and hold the right trigger, you kind of gain mass and you become heavier, which as you're going downhills means you're gaining a lot of momentum, and then you can release said momentum and like really shoot off into the air if you go back up a hill.
When you say a lot of momentum, I just want to like reiterate, we are talking a lot of fucking momentum. Like the sense of speed in this game is fucking insane.
Yeah, like one of the achievements, I think maybe the only achievement I got was breaking the sound barrier. By like going up in the air, and then if you pull the R trigger when you're way up in the air, you will just fall like a rock because you are full of mass at that point. Like, and you're gaining and gaining mass, and you're just hella heavy all of a sudden. So you're just like plummeting as fast as possible, and then you know either that's hitting ground or going into the water where you continue to fall. And yeah, you break the sound barrier and like all kinds of visual effects happen. But then you can kind of use that momentum to like swing back up with all that energy you have built up. You can flatten yourself by pulling the L trigger, and then you go from that ball, you know, that marble ball shape into kind of like a flattened like oval. Like the flat earthers think like that design, and then
I kept calling it pancake mode when I was streaming. I was like, let me activate pancake mode. But it's basically like a disc, you know, like a frisbee golf, you know, disc golf thing.
Yes, yeah. And then from there you can kind of like there's wind that you can ride on, or you can kind of like use that to, you know, think like Super Mario World's like cape mechanic. You can kind of do kind of that motion where you're dipping in the air up and down to like gain momentum and continue to glide. Although you can't hold in that oval shape forever, you kind of lose it over time.
Yeah, it's like you have to. It's almost. I couldn't fully figure it out because it doesn't necessarily explain a whole lot to you. But like, it's
there's like
something
sound indicators around it at the very least. But yeah,
it's like I could tell something was like getting charged when I would activate like the mass and turn into a ball, or even just like dive. Because like basically, you could essentially still activate like the increasing of your mass when you're in the pancake mode. So yeah, you're basically like swooping down, and then I don't know, I got into like a really good flow state with the game of like kind of releasing the two triggers and getting in this like and did you get into any of the water stages? I know you said you made it to like the 5th stage. That was like
Aquarius or whatever they call. Yeah, I got there too.
That was where the game started. That was probably my favorite stage. And pretty much like on that stage, as I was playing it, I was like, this feels like the last level. And for the whole rest of the game, and there was probably like 6, 7, 8 more levels.
Oh, geez. I was way off then.
This is the last level. Oh, no, this is the last level. I kept saying that, and Quasi-Otter was in the chat while I was playing. And they were like, isn't that like just the sign of like a great game?
Yeah.
Like every single, or at least like that it's like an experience. And it really is one of those games. But at the same time, I've been like thinking about replaying it a bunch.
Nice.
Like, I haven't done it yet, and I was actually thinking about replaying it today, and I apparently deleted it off my Xbox. I was like, I'm not in the mood to reinstall it. I'll just play some Olija World instead. But I really, especially when I got to that water stage, where you can like activate the pancake and like skip across the water,
like a skipping stone.
Yeah. Oh, that felt so amazing. Because again, you can build up some serious speed, and I don't know, how deep did you dive underwater?
Oh, I went to the floor. I went to the sea
me
floor.
Too. Me too. Because Shinif was like, "Oh, you got to go underwater." I was like, "I don't know. This is like freak." Because once you go underwater,
there's like
it
nothing.
Really really
desolate.
muffles the sound. It's like it's kind of terrifying.
Yeah,
like you feel like you're like trapped underwater almost.
It basically like removes your senses in a lot of ways. To be that deep underwater.
Yeah, and it's like, but you can kind of launch yourself out of the water, like you and on a couple of the stages you almost need to do that.
Yep.
But it's kind of like just this really like open-ended game. Even some of like the later stages are like. They were like kind of like these extra gravity defying levels, like the whole game kind of is, but like these stages were like even more so. I was like, I don't even really know what I'm doing. I'm just kind of, I think, following this like
the blue
glowing
light. Yeah, generally
exactly.
the blue light is your guide, but I don't feel like it ever explicitly tells you that. You just kind of be like, I guess I'll head to that blue light that I can kind of see in the sky. Or sometimes there's a white light, and that's like what ends up being like a power-up item that's in the sky, but those tend to be pretty difficult to get. I think I only got like one of those.
A power up? I don't even know if I got any of those. I found a couple kind of like switch at like where it felt like I needed to get like 3 to then activate something, but
one of them was like a white item. Maybe it was in that Aquarius stage or one of the later ones, and it like added to my ability to like double jump with the A button or hold my. Ooh. Yeah, it was something that like
think I got
improved my abilities, but it took me a few tries to get it. So I'm not surprised that you weren't able to get it or even didn't see it.
But that's even cool, like, because sometimes, like, when I think of, like, a game, like, where I'm kind of describing it as, like, oh, this game's kind of like an experience, I kind of think of a more, like, scripted game that's, like, you're going through the motions. And this game, like, has some of that to a degree. Like, there's, like, little, like, cryptic, it has, like, this, you almost get the feeling that you're, like, maybe playing as this, like, crashed space mission or something.
Yeah, like you're, like, inhabiting these, like, maybe dead astronauts, because you keep seeing like a flash frame, think like a Fight Club effect or something. Like there's like a cut in frame of like, and it's a picture of these astronauts from a mission before they went off on the space shuttle type of thing. You're seeing images like that every so often.
And randomly. Hearing like a transmission that's like kind of cryptic and kind of vague and just kind of like, and I don't know, but it's just, I really got sucked into this experience, and I kept, again, I'm really glad. At one point, I was like, I think I'm going to stop after this level if there's any more than this, and it ended up just working out perfect. Where it was like, it ended right at the end of the, where I was feeling like I was ready to make some lunch and end the stream.
Nice.
But yeah, it was just such a cool experience. Like, I'm so glad that it was on Game Pass, because it's just another. I always sing the praises, almost a little too much sometimes, about Xbox Game Pass, but.
No, but that's really, honestly, last night I was like, Tina was sitting on the couch too. I'm like, this is why Game Pass is cool, because like these like kind of weird, maybe not super commercial game experiences can exist on this platform and not feel the express need to like be like a commercial product on their own in a cynical way, right? They can just be this experience, and they can be on Game Pass, and that's cool.
Yeah, and I still always like, too, that Game Pass, like any game, it's listed on Game Pass or whatever, they have that, like, 20% discount if you buy it. Yeah. So it's like, okay, I like that they're at least encouraging you to, like, purchase these games. I don't know. And again, for me, I always think of, I don't think this one's available on Switch. It actually might be, but I don't know how it would run. I wouldn't even want to play it on Switch. And actually, I did want to ask, how did it look? Because I think part of the reason I was goading you to check it out was like, how is it going to look on your Series X and on your 4K TV? Because I'm over here with
great.
My Xbox One.
Yeah.
I definitely don't have a 4K TV. I don't even think my TV said it was HDR, but anything I ever try to turn HDR on my TV, it's like, your TV's not compatible.
I would be surprised if you had a 1080p TV that had HDR capability.
Yeah, okay. Good to know.
But no, it looked great. I did get a little bit of slowdown in one of the later stages, and that's also I kind of got stuck. But like, I'm not holding that against the game. It's trying to do cool, weird things, and that's fun. And it was later in the game anyway, so.
Yeah, and I had a little bit of that too, but it definitely didn't like get in the way of my experience. And there were a couple moments, like, I don't know if you got to the part, like I got to this one stage where I like. It was the only part of the game where you weren't the part of that. Like, I guess you were kind of the ball, but you were like, you sort of like got trapped in like one of those like gladiator,
that's
American
where I got
gladiators,
stuck.
Like hamster cages.
Yeah, I got stuck there.
Quasi Otter said the same. Like, they popped in the chat right at that part. They're like, "Oh, you're at the worst part of the game." I was like, "Oh no!" But it is like so obtuse. Like, what the fuck is going on here?
That's where I stopped.
Okay, that's totally fair. It really is obtuse, because it's all of a sudden like you go from this like super fast zipping around, like almost weightless. Obviously, you're like at times like you're adding a ton of weight to your ship or whatever.
But you always have a ton of momentum and mobility.
Yeah, and now all of a sudden you are just like as heavy as hell and just like inching along, like basically pushing a boulder, Yeah. And it was just like a weird section of the game, but it also like added to the just like what the hell is going on quality of the game.
Oh yeah, and I just expected it, like I was gonna get stuck and the story was gonna like explain that to me, and then I'd be transported, and that just didn't happen. So I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I'm just done.
Yeah, and they definitely don't like ever do anything like that again, or like it's never really touched upon what it's all about. So I don't really get, like, it did feel kind of out of place, I guess. But again, it just kind of added to like the what the hell's going on with this game. And I don't know, it's like a gripe, but I wouldn't even complain about it, I guess.
No, I mean, besides that, I had a great time with it. I'm glad for the experience.
Yeah. And I guess just real quick while we're talking about Game Pass, I don't want to go on too long about this one, but I had a great time. I know recently on the podcast, I kind of talked about Flynn, Son of Crimson on one of the Save It for the Cast episodes and how I got really sucked into that game. And what kind of got me started on my kick of like actually trying to beat games was playing a game right before that called Olija. And that's Olija on Game Pass. And this is a game from Devolver Digital was the publisher. I think Skeleton Crew. It's something Skeleton. I forget the name of the developer. But I was kind of shocked because I was like, I feel like I remember seeing this at some point. But I also feel like I always see Devolver's games everywhere, but I feel like I don't really see anyone talk about this game, but it has like a really cool, at least for me, I sent it to our buddy Glenn and he was like, oh, I don't really like the art style. I was like, oh, that's what caught my eye and why I wanted to play it. So, but it's got this, it does have like, I could see not liking it. It's got like a kind of distinct, like almost like sketchy pixel art style and like kind of chunky, blockier, like it looks a little rough around the edges, but on purpose. It's definitely like a stylistic choice,
right?
But like you start off the game and it's basically like a combat focused platformer that's like got some light exploration Metroidvania elements, but kind of like Flynn, Son of Crimson. There's like a world map that you're more on like a boat and you're basically like going around to different islands, and each island has like a few different like docks that you can dock at, and then some of them are connected, some of them are not. It's kind of like there's some cryptic stuff going on with the story. It was kind of the perfect, like it was like a 5-hour game, so a little bit longer than Exo One, but it just kind of sucked me in. Played it in like 2 or 3 sittings, and it just has some of the coolest controls for like both combat and platforming. Like you kind of start off like you get this like little lance, like almost like a fencing sword or whatever for your main weapon, and then you like otherwise kind of have like you're just like doing regular combat, but eventually like melee combat, but eventually you get this harpoon relatively early on, and that's when the game like really opens up because you can throw the harpoon, and basically if it sticks into an enemy or like there's like these various like eyeballs that are kind of like they'll trigger, or not trigger, but they'll kind of like hint at like a secret, like something off screen. Like if you see like these eyeballs dangling off a ledge, like, oh, maybe if I throw my harpoon, I can like stick in something that's like way up off the screen. Yeah. And then once the harpoon's stuck in something, you can like teleport to that harpoon, like Nightcrawler style, like really fast. Like it almost feels like a dash at times, depending on how you're using it, but it definitely is more like a teleport because you can like, when you're fighting some of the bosses, like you can stick it into the boss and then like you're running away from the boss, but then teleport right like behind them kind of and do a couple quick slashes. And the combat's just like so fast and snappy. And I don't know, the story, like you play as this guy Faraday, and like everything's like so like sort of like medieval kind of themed, but I kept thinking I was playing as like Daniel Faraday from Lost at the same time. I don't know. It's just got this really weird style. And like the only thing that feels out of place, but awesome at the same time in the game is like you get these different hats that you can unlock that give you like a different buff. So like the whole game I'm playing as this guy who's like on this like swashbuckling, like almost like pirate-esque adventure, but I'm also wearing like a backwards baseball hat that leeches life off of enemies as I kill them. But like it's so cool, and like you get a couple different weapons as like your secondary weapon, and like all the way up through the late game, like the very last weapon you get is like this super heavy like sword that you don't use a ton for combat, but you actually can like stab it into the ground, and then you can also teleport with a totally separate button to that heavy sword. So like in the last couple levels, there's some puzzles where you're like, you got to like throw your spear or your harpoon in like one spot and like really do some like, not necessarily timing, like they're actually more like head scratcher puzzles, but like, I don't know, just the game has such a fluid ramping up of an adventure. Like, I don't know, I just got really sucked into this game. Like I would put it among like some of my favorite games I've ever played. Like it really, it really is sticking with, like, I know I always say like the top 10, but I'm sticking with, I would throw it in the top 10% of games I've ever played pretty easily. I'm looking forward to playing it again. Like, there's definitely some stuff I didn't find,
man.
And I've had it on like the docket to talk about on the podcast for weeks and weeks, and I'm like, I'm kind of glad that I'm just kind of squeezing it in because I don't want to spoil too much, even though I kind of already feel like I sort of did.
I don't know though. You had me at Nightcrawler, like that Nightcrawler teleport, like best character in X-Men Arcade, and you're going to give me that type of gameplay in this type of game. That sounds pretty cool.
It's really awesome. Like, when I first used the harpoon, I was like I already thought the game was sweet, and then they gave me the harpoon, and I was like, oh, wait a second. It just, the pace of the game is just really cool. The story, the way it's kind of dispersed throughout the game, really like just in little small chunks. I don't know. I really loved it. Really, really awesome stuff. Nice. But I've gushed enough so far. Why don't I throw it back your way, Randall, for some retro action? Yes,
that's what I do. So I've talked before about having my my game setup now at the house, and now I'm in phase 2 of said game setup.
Yes.
So I went down a controller adapter rabbit hole. And the main thing that prompted this is I'm someone that likes arcade sticks, but even in a house, arcade sticks take up real space, real square footage. They are not small devices.
They're huge.
They're huge, yes. And as much as I would like to have, individual arcade sticks for all of the platforms I have, that's not feasible. So I started doing some research. And then I went down this massive rabbit hole of controller adapters. So and this happened primarily over like the holidays, and I'm only just now talking about it because I've had a chance to check them out, and some of them have firmware updates, so I've been doing all that sort of stuff and, screwing around with these things, and yeah.
Okay, so this was kind of the chicken or the egg thing that I was trying to like parse beforehand. I was like, do you have a like arcade stick that you were purchasing the controller adapters for, or do you have these controller adapters over your game collecting life and you were trying to find an arcade stick that could meet those?
Option A.
Okay.
So I had the arcade stick. My mom was nice enough to buy me for a Christmas a few years ago at least, the Switch Ori Hori Real Arcade Pro 5 or V arcade stick, which is just kind of a nice modern arcade stick with like 8 buttons on it and the Japanese, stick and stuff. And it's just a really nice stick, but it was just for Switch and PC. That's all it worked on. But I've got this Xbox Series X and I've got all these retro systems, and I'm like, man, it would be really cool to have like an arcade stick for, say Sega Saturn or Sega Dreamcast with all of the fighting games and arcade experiences there. But, to buy a Dreamcast or Saturn official arcade stick will cost you an entire leg at this point on eBay. And and who knows what condition it'll be in. And again, that just takes up extra space that I don't necessarily have in the first place, right?
And you, like, if you're using the same one all the time, you can kind of get comfortable and like used to the feel of just that one gamepad or whatever. Not gamepad, but analog
arcade stick. Yes.
Yeah.
So Brooke is to my understand, like at least in my world, a relatively new creator of adapters. I think they're out of Taiwan, or I think it's Taiwan. But they create these USB adapters, and because they're USB, they're firmware updatable as well on PC, which is great, and I think on Mac too.
Nice.
But I got one of them. I got an Xbox One. It works on Xbox One and Xbox Series X, but it's an adapter, and that allowed me just, after firmware update, plug that right into the front USB port on my Xbox and plug the Switch arcade stick right into that, and I'm off and running. There's no extra button presses or anything. It just works. No lag, nothing.
Ooh, yeah, like, because that's the number one thing, like, especially when for something that is an arcade stick that, like, I would think needs to be, like, 1-to-1 or as close to it as humanly like feasible.
100%. And I think, they might even say that some of these adapters have some like bare like milliseconds of like to transfer this input to input, but yep. I don't perceive said lag, and I'm someone that perceives that stuff pretty quickly. We've talked in the past about like the Mega Man X collection or things like that. That stuff sticks out like a sore thumb. I never had that feeling playing with these things. So
wow,
that's take awesome. That with what you will. So there's that Xbox One. I got one that is a Saturn and Dreamcast adapter. It's like a dual dongle type of thing.
Okay.
And that Dreamcast one includes VMU memory built into the adapter.
Jesus.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's like externally, like it would just be like hanging there off of a dongle kind of thing?
So
it's in the adapter.
Yes, the memory ability is inside of the adapter, and then so when you start a Dreamcast, it'll pick up, you've got a VMU inserted in this controller, but it's in the adapter, right? It's just like
yeah.
But because it's USB, I can then plug it into my PC or Mac and then download the files onto my computer to back them up as well, right?
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, the Dreamcast has now become the most open source system in existence.
Exactly.
With no DRM on their entire library.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, which like throwback to like way back in the day when I had like an N64 memory card adapter that I could plug into my PC through like some expansion port or some shit.
Jesus.
PCE port or some shit. And it would allow me to back up all of my N64 controller or my N64 like memory card adapter stuff to my computer, and I thought that was less like some future shit.
Yeah.
But anyway, I also got a Genesis /PC Engine adapter, which again, like both of those systems, like PC Engine also has the same adapter type as a Turbo Duo, which is what I have.
Okay.
So both systems, big on shmups, like massive shmup systems. So like for that purpose alone is like crucial to have an arcade stick in my opinion. And it again works great with that Switch arcade stick, works great with the I got a Astro City Mini, which is something that Sega created. They also created an arcade stick to go along with it that was released in Japan. I had imported that when I had got the Astro City Mini for that purpose, but now I can use it with these other adapters on these other platforms. So, effectively have two arcade sticks that I can use on these systems. There's also a NES and Super Nintendo one. So I've got that as well. So essentially now, I can use my Switch or that Astro City Mini arcade stick on all of these platforms, and that's a beautiful thing.
Well, and the fact, too, that you can sort of, at least in my mind, you can like justify kind of leaving the arcade sticks out a little bit more or somewhere like where they're more readily accessible, where instead of like, again, if you had one for each system, they would definitely be buried in a closet or somewhere where you're like, let me go dig them out.
Yes.
Like even the extra controllers somewhere, like, I definitely only have like one 64 controller handy, maybe two, but like the rest are buried in a Tupperware box, some Rubbermaid somewhere.
And that's the thing for me, is if it's difficult to get to, I'm never going to do it. And I need my controllers, the main controllers that I use for these platforms, to be easily accessible, least amount of barriers possible to work on these things. And that's what I've allowed to happen by finding these adapters. I also bought some of these other RalphNet adapters, which is even more rabbit hole, because now we're talking about classic controller / Wii adapter. So you think, the adapter when you plug a classic controller into like a Wii controller / what Nintendo used as their standard when they released the NES Mini and the SNES Mini. That same classic controller input, same wiring.
I forgot that was that same input.
Yes. So because of that, RalphNet has created these adapters mostly under the guise of thinking that people are going to have these NES and SNES controllers with their mini systems, right? But it also works with these other ones. And I am a sicko who bought two Wii U arcade sticks back when they were $50 and being clearanced out. They used that input because they expected you to plug them into a Wii controller.
Yeah.
But I can use them now, that Wii adapter to GameCube, Wii adapter to N64. I can effectively use my Wii U arcade sticks on those platforms with these adapters.
Randall,
and also I'm assuming not like sucking the battery juice out of a Wiimote. Like I can't imagine that a Wiimote can power those for all that long.
Longer than you might think. Yeah.
Okay. Nice.
This is the best possible outcome of what I thought this story was going to be at the like. This is just nothing but good news, and like I was 100% sure that this was going to be you talking about. It's like, oh yeah, I have had these like dozens of like adapters over the years, and this is my like
only one of them works.
No, like I had to connect the Sega Saturn one to the N64 one to the Dreamcast one to my arcade stick. But no, this is just I did research and I got good quality products, and that seems so foreign to me that I can't understand how this is happening.
To be fair, there's a graveyard of adapters and experiences when I was trying to figure out video input in best possible quality with also ease of access. And that's why I've got a bunch of shitty SCART adapters and things like that are, in my garage now. That's where that sort of thing came into play.
Yeah, but you live and you learn. Like you learn, like, hey, it's worth doing the research and putting the time in, and sometimes spending the little extra money in some cases, like to just get the stuff just get the good one. In a lot of cases, when it comes to the retro stuff, but that's really good to hear, especially again, just all that compatibility. So now you can just at least have a Rubbermaid full of adapters instead of a closet full of arcade sticks.
No, it's true, and it's just like right there and available. And because retro is such a big gaming niche on its own, this sort of stuff is being created for that subgenre that exists now in a way that it probably wouldn't have even 5 years ago. So, people like me, sickos like me, that's like I've got a Super Nintendo to N64 one just because, right? There's also like a Switch adapter that'll let me plug that Astro City mini arcade stick into a Switch so I can have another arcade stick there. Like it just there's all kinds of stuff that way, and it's a beautiful time that way.
Well, even in a cheesy like way too, like just having them out again. I don't know where you have them out, like if they're like on display, but I feel like nobody's gonna see like a pro controller sitting on the coffee table and say, "Hey, let's play some video games." But like maybe you have a friend over, and if you have like a fucking arcade stick sitting on the coffee table or over by the TV, somebody might say, "Hey, what's that for?"
That's
hey, you know what? Why don't we play some Towerfall? Or why don't we, like who? Like I just feel like it's like a conversation starter, or at the very least, encouraging people to just like start a game session. I don't know. I like it.
I love arcade sticks and I love arcade games. So that would make me happy.
Yeah. Well, not fully arcade games, but we're in the retro realm. Why don't we throw it over to John here? Well, he's been, I guess, doing some retro gaming on the Switch.
So we were talking a little bit before the podcast started about like, I was planning on not really diving too deep into the N64 on the Nintendo Switch online service because I really wanted to have the controller, and I had tried out Star Fox 64 and like the lack of C buttons, or just mapping the C buttons behind the ZR like trigger that you have to hold and then do the face buttons. Really?
No, thank you.
Really cumbersome and not enjoyable. Like, for a game that I have like so much ingrained in muscle memory, like I really can't, like, it's on rails. Like there's very little like room, and
it's a reflexive game. The gameplay is very like, the gameplay is very like reactive and reflexive. So you're like, hitting a button real quick, like just based on reflex and memory.
Until you go into all range mode.
Yeah, then it really gets fun. Gonna have fun with this thing. That was Brawl and not a mainline Star Fox game. Anyway, so I was just messing around, trying different titles. Like, yes, Dr. Mario, like, you don't really need the controller to be that. Like, you can use a D-pad. It's perfect. But then I, on a whim, just started playing Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time because I haven't played Ocarina of Time in a long time.
Sure.
And I just wanted to see how it controlled. And it turns out really fucking good. Like, I think they made that little like ZR trigger to like map it probably around like Ocarina of Time and maybe like the Super Mario 64, like the big mainline titles, because it map so well, and I don't quite understand how that can be because
it's all just action buttons on the C buttons, right?
Action buttons on the C buttons, but like the way that like even though A and B are inverted in position or orientation, like it still makes sense when you like think about that because they're mapped more, not as much like on an angle on the UI, but like just right next to each other. So you're like, okay, like B is the one that's furthest to the right and A is the other one. Like, so like it still kind of translates as like, okay, I'm moving more left to right than I am up and down. So that position on the UI makes sense.
And it's not like flipping confirm and cancel. Like I feel like those are still the same. It's still A and B.
And then if you look specifically with the like UI on whatchamacallit, on Ocarina of Time, how the C buttons are arranged to the right of A and B. So then C left is mapped to just, is it X or Y? The furthest left button on
Y.
Yeah.
It's Y.
Yeah, on Y. Thanks, Kev.
On Nintendo, it's
Y.
Y.
Yeah, because on Xbox,
X on
it's
Xbox.
the opposite. Yeah.
So Y is mapped to C left, and then X is mapped to C up.
Yeah.
So those are like the like
it's a diamond
positions that you would press, like or C down rather. I think specifically for C down.
So there's only one, because one of the C's is like Navy or Navy or whatever, and then the other one is just So you're only missing one like weapon slot, if you will, or item slot, like with a dedicated button.
And that was also always the one that I would put on C right, which was the heart. It wasn't in that diamond formation. If you're looking at an N64 controller, that would be the one that you would have to do a crossover in order to hit. So that putting that one as a like one that you don't use as often, like putting that behind a ZR trigger, like to hold down, like doesn't feel that different than like
makes sense
moving like. So like how much effort it took to explain that was just was immediately recognizable. Like I was just going for those buttons automatically, not realizing that like I was doing that.
Oh, that's good.
I was just going like, oh, I know, like that's hookshot. I need to go to the hookshot button and not really think like, oh, but even though like I'm pressing Y, that translates to C left. I didn't have to think about it for a second.
Oh, that's great.
And
that's impressive, because that's even one of the reasons I think I've mentioned before on the podcast that I haven't played the Master Quest, I think it's called, the version on GameCube, is because like I'm just like, because I think you have to use like the C stick on the GameCube for like up, down, left, and right on the C buttons, and I'm like, that just, I can't like wrap my head around it, but I'm sure if I just played it, it would probably click. I mean, a bunch of people love that game.
Yeah. And like, so the second game I tried was a game that I've brought up on this podcast before as like in passing, because it's more of a memory of when we have a conversation about renting games. It was one of the two games that I ever rented. It was Yoshi's Story.
Yes.
It was like, what was the name? It was an island. It was Yoshi's Story.
One,
yeah. And Banjo-Kazooie. And Banjo-Kazooie I have not played since I rented it, like in my childhood.
Wow.
Like, it has been so long since I played it. When I played it for a ton of times, but like even by the time that like I got into like collecting older like retro games, like Banjo-Kazooie was one that people just either didn't sell or like places were selling at like full price. Like you had to buy it for like $50. And I was like, I don't know if Banjo-Kazooie is worth $50 like at this point. So I was really excited to play it because this is basically like the first time, like I remember such general like themes of the game and not like specific areas. Like in my memory, the first area was completely mirrored, and I'm like, okay, this doesn't make I can't. So like I was like, okay, I think is it Mumbo
Jumbo?
Yeah.
Mumbo Jumbo. I was like, yeah, Mumbo Jumbo is up and to the left, and I'm like, nope, it's up to the right.
Yeah, on that hill.
Like, yeah. So like my memory is basically useless for this game. Like I'm coming into it almost like completely fresh, and again it handles so well because the C buttons are just camera. So I'm using the C stick. I'm not even really using X and Y. So like, putting the camera on the C stick just feels like a GameCube era game. So like, it doesn't even feel that off. And just it controls great. And we brought this up in like some texts between you and me, Kevin, or maybe we put it in the Discord where I was like, this is the exact level of complexity that I want from a 3D platformer. Like, when I started playing ukulele, I was like, this is fun. This is very like the level designs are well done. The objectives
super
are fun.
Pretty. Like the environment's fun. Yeah.
But like personality, I don't know if I'd go that far, but go on.
But like, I just didn't have that much fun playing it, and it felt like there was just a lot to do, and like kind of a little bit too much. Like, it
almost felt they were like fill the world with stuff. I kind of got that. I've only watched DJ play like the opening level of that game, and we both were just kind of like,
It's a collectathon in like the most like literal sense, in that they have like each world or each level has so many different categories that you need to like collect 100 of, or
like Donkey Kong 64 style.
A game I've literally never played.
I've played a little bit of it, but you could probably you're better off playing Banjo, that's for sure.
Yes.
One thing I gotta say is it's still, or not still, but it's awesome to see, like, or I shouldn't even say it's awesome to see, but it's just cool to see. Like, I feel like it very easily we could be in a world where Microsoft and Nintendo, like Microsoft owning Rare, we could not see Banjo-Kazooie on this Switch Online
100%.
service. So it's kind of cool that, that we're seeing stuff like Cuphead and the Ori games that we've talked about. It's just cool that Nintendo and Microsoft have a good relationship.
They do.
So that there is the possibility for, like, the Donkey Kong Country games to not just be, like, stuck in some legal limbo, or, again, Banjo as well, to be, like... I feel like, because Xbox, even back in the 360 days, did the remakes of Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie.
Awesome.
Yeah,
They're
Randall
perfect.
was just talking about those. Like, they kind of keep the 64 like aesthetic and like whatever, and they just kind of like up-res it, but like a little
and
more
widescreen
than that. They full widescreen. Like it's given a little more loving care than just saying here's 480p or whatever. Like they go above and beyond, but it still feels like you're playing a 64 game. Just really sharp. I don't know. It's just really cool. But it's also still cool that they say, hey, but we'll let Nintendo put it out on their platform as well. Like, I don't know. I just feel like it could so easily be like we could not be seeing that happen. So
100%.
Did you ever play Banjo-Tooie, John, out of curiosity? I never have, and I've always wanted to.
It's a good game.
I had never beaten Banjo-Kazooie, so I never wanted to rent Banjo-Tooie. How could I rent the sequel if I haven't even completed the original? Oh, man.
You got me wanting to boot those up on Game. Speaking of Game Pass earlier, there's even more stuff that's on Game Pass, but I think we can probably wrap up the video games chat there for this week, guys. And as always, you can find us on the internet at pursuingpixels.com. We mentioned the Discord earlier. Come hang with us on Discord. We're always hanging out, chatting games. I feel like people are sharing all sorts of cool stuff, not even just games. Like I talked about Trash Quest on the podcast, to save it for the cast episode. Our buddy Francis, who made Trash Quest, just shared his new like emo album in the Discord, and it's freaking awesome. I've had this song Oats stuck in my head for like 3 days. So,
Oats Part 2.
I know. I just noticed that
is a ska song, and then I listened to that one first, and I was like, Kevin, you're really into this? Oats 2 is way more like the jangly guitar.
It's and the album art. I was like, man, this is just sick. It's so cool. So come hang on the Discord, on Twitch. I've been doing a bunch of streaming lately, but we're around on the internet. Come hang, and otherwise we will catch you next week. And until then, take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, before, when we were talking about the podcast and what we were gonna bring about, Ugh. Oy, oy, oy.
Bring to the table.
Yeah, really, that was just an absolute garbage fire of a sentence. Let me reset.